Hey, Jam and Jen, everyone. This is Clément from Commit, and today I'm with Avril from Neutron. Hey, Avril, how's it going?
Going pretty well, actually. Thanks for having me.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So Avril, I'm a core contributor to the Neutron network. I'm also the CEO and founder of Hadron Labs, the company that developed a significant part of the Neutron's software. Yeah, that's the gist of it.
Okay, pretty short answer. It will be the next one will be short too. I usually start the podcast with a pretty simple question. Could you sell me your company? In this case, could you sell me Neutron in 30 seconds?
Yeah, for sure. Neutron is the most secure cross-chain smart contracting platform. So if you want to, build a DeFi application and launch it on, launch it once and expand to dozens of blockchains, then that's what Neutron allows you to do and to do securely.
Okay. Could you provide an overview of the Cosmos ecosystem and highlight its unique features compared to Ethereum? So why you're working on Cosmos rather than, Ethereum?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think the main difference between Cosmos and Ethereum is that in Cosmos, the fundamental ideas are like sovereignty and horizontal scaling. So Ethereum provides you with this like massive one world world computer sort of like stack whereby everybody can deploy on the same virtual machine and therefore have like synchronous composability, strong network effects and such, but also strong trade-offs whereby if you're building an application that requires like low-level access, for example, you want to run oracles into like at the consensus level, or you want to have your validators perform specific actions, like for example match orders in an order book like DYDX is doing now. You will never be able to do that at the Ethereum layer because even if you proposed and developed the tech to do so, doing so would be perceived as trying to overload Ethereum's consensus, and it would be dangerous for the health of the network as a whole. And so Cosmos, on the other hand, allows you to basically, build and deploy a blockchain that is specifically designed for your application. And what that gives you is the ability to really customize the stack from top to bottom to what exactly your application wants to do to optimize for performance, UX, and all of these things. And the sort of like emerging property of having control over the entire stack is sovereignty, right? So if your community is faced with a dilemma, it's able to, basically edit, like choose the fork based on what it values or privileges directly, right? It is not subservient to a superset of a community that includes your application. Concretely speaking, what that means is that Cosmos, as opposed to Ethereum, is not one virtual machine. It's an ecosystem of numerous blockchains that are sovereign, highly customized, but are still able to interoperate very closely with each other using a protocol called IBC, which is a bridging primitive, but it's a trust, it's a trust minimized bridging technology that leverages light clients, e.g. On both sides of the channels between two chains, e.g. each chain verifies the state and the messages that it gets from the other blockchain to ensure that they're valid and that they should indeed be executed. And so what that does is it creates this ecosystem of applications that are distributed but connect together pretty closely, right? Now, where Neutron fits into this is, you have this sort of like Cambrian explosion of different like designs and pretty advanced like dexes and money markets and other primitives that have been born using this stack and this like high degree of customizability. It does increase the degree of fragmentation as for liquidity, for communities, user base, and stuff. And because you're building an entire blockchain for your application, it also has a higher cost per application deployed than if you were just launching a smart contract on Ethereum. And so what we've seen is that while these technologies have been tremendously powerful, there has been a gradual move towards them, but still that has been slowed down basically by some of these challenges like liquidity fragmentation, overhead and such. And so, Neutron's kind of like vision is that like you can create an ecosystem that allows one, applications from all across Cosmos on their own blockchains to basically come to this sort of like unified central market where they can find their like a larger user base to bring to their application without the friction of cross-chain interactions, because Neutron provides the tools to automate these functions, right? It abstracts away the cross-chain complexity from the user level to the infrastructure layer. And two, for applications, it allows you, if you're not, if you don't have the resources or don't want to start by building your own blockchain, you can still benefit from Cosmos's technologies by basically launching on Neutron as a smart contract and then expanding your application's reach to any other IBC connected blockchain, so that your application is able to leverage a bigger market overall, as well as all of the features that the various blockchains around Cosmos kind of like offer, basically.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this answer. Actually, you're the I mean, it's pretty new for me to have people talking about Cosmos on this show. You are the second one, honestly. The first one was Maria Gomez, who's working at the Intelligent Foundation, and so that's purely like reflects on the audience. I mean, I'm a rookie in the Cosmos universe, so that's why there will be like all these questions, and it might be really like low level entry for some people, but for others it might be like really useful. How does
great, actually, because easy questions means that I get to LARP and pretend I'm like super smart. In reality, I'm really not. But if I can help provide context on this ecosystem that's like very different from a number of other ecosystems, then I'll consider this a success. So let's go.
How does Neutron contribute to the goal of scalability within the Cosmos ecosystem?
That's an interesting question. So, Ethereum has come to this vision of vertical scalability by, like scaling through rollups, right? So we have the system that is like tremendously decentralized and secure, but is not super performant. And so we're going to create new systems that derive their security from the underlying system, and that they can make different trade-offs so that they are very performant, but still inherit some of the good properties of Ethereum, right? And so this has been like super exciting to watch unfold. It does have limitations though, in like the bridges themselves are fairly, who governs the bridges? Are they upgradable? All of this. How do you connect rollups together? And a number of other challenges. Cosmos from the get-go, multiple years ago, opted for a different route of scaling, where it basically went the route of saying, anytime new block space is required, we just create new block space. Your application, when it launches, will create the block space that it needs to run, basically, right? So there's no competition for resources, right? So, scaling as in scarcity of block space and congestions and IPs doesn't really exist in Cosmos. That's not a thing, basically. Every blockchain, like every application, comes with the block space that it needs to run, basically. And so scaling is not really an issue in this regard, but there are I would say like two sort of like challenges for scaling in Cosmos. The first one is like scaling applications and user bases, because you have this kind of like very fragmented ecosystem that is like connected by these bridges. You have very distinct sort of like pools of liquidity and distinct communities, and bridging these together to basically create the critical mass that enables like the next levels of growth has been something that has been challenging. So Neutron kind of like our thesis is like really trying to bridge these communities and these applications together and in these blockchains together, so that we can actually achieve that objective of like reaching critical mass, having like a strong enough market to motivate new builders and users to come in and join the economy. So that's number one. Number two, there is also like a fairly recent development in the ecosystem, which is called which is a technology called replicated security, which launched this year on the Cosmos Hub. And replicated security is one of the first implementation of shared security in the industry. What it does is it allows the oldest, most valuable first chain in the ecosystem, the Cosmos Hub, to lend its security and its validator set, so its validator set and its atom at stake, to other blockchains, basically, right? So instead of launching with your own validator set and trying to bootstrap the market cap of your proof of stake token in order to achieve security eventually, you can launch with the full security of the Cosmos Hub, its full decentralization from block one, basically. And Neutron is the first chain that leverages this technology, basically. It's now joined by Stride, a liquid staking app chain, which has also launched, migrated to this technology and is now also being secured by the Cosmos Hub. And this technology particularly is very interesting because it creates very deep political and economical alignment between the Cosmos Hub community and blockchain and the consumer chain networks, or like Neutron and Stride in this case currently. But it does have one limitation, which is that because all validators are forced into validating these new chains, and because there's a mismatch between the instant additional infrastructure cost created by running an additional node for that new blockchain that the validators now validate, and the time where the rewards are accrued, which is when the consumer chain becomes very successful and start generating a meaningful amount of value to be shared with the Cosmos Hub and its validators. There's a bit of a kind of financial pressure that prevents this technology from being rapidly scaled to securing hundreds of different blockchains, right? And so Neutron, in a way, helps this technology scale by basically bringing vertical scaling to that technology. E.g., the hub can select very promising blockchain projects and provide security to them in exchange for some kind of an agreement, whether it's revenue share tokens or whatever the communities agree on, through governance. But Neutron allows you to basically launch an unlimited number of applications on the security of the Cosmos Hub by enabling you to launch smart contracts on Neutron, right? In the future, we can bring this even one step further by enabling rollups to settle onto Neutron and therefore inherit the the censorship resistance and the security of the Cosmos Hub as well.
Okay, so thank you very much. But I mean, you already answered the question I was going to ask about the replicated security on Cosmos. So how does this replicated security improve this? I mean, the security and the functionality of the hub and the consumer chain like Neutron? I mean, in simple words.
Yeah, for sure. So from the hub's perspective, the hub is a blockchain that has been historically extremely minimal for a reason, which is that the hub was always seen as this stable anchor in the middle of the ecosystem that is the most secure, stable, reliable blockchain basically. And replicated security essentially allows the hub to monetize this security and stability, right? It allows it to provide it to other projects to allow them to basically avoid the cold start problem of bootstrapping your validator set and staked asset to achieve security, which you need to achieve successful applications. So there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem of the bootstrapping phase that you get to entirely skip by working with the hub through replicated security. And in exchange for doing so, the Cosmos Hub is able to monetize the service, bring the most the most promising projects into very close alignment, so that Atom, its native asset, can find new markets where it can be used, find more utility, etc. And so that's from the hub's perspective. From the consumer chain's perspective, it allows you to skip this bootstrapping phase, and it also allows you to align very closely with this kind of flagship of the ecosystem, which has through its historical existence amassed a number of integrations with centralized exchanges, custodians, what have you, and also achieved fairly wide distribution of the token and fairly large mindshare basically in the industry, so that that helps your project hopefully achieve more credibility, basically, having the stamp of approval of the Cosmos Hub, basically, probably helps like bolster your initial your network's initial traction. And so you have this like very close or like alignment that is like mutually beneficial essentially. So that's kind of like the frame of reference for replicated security.
Okay. So I'd like to talk about something new. I mean it's pretty new to the Cosmos ecosystem, and you helped launch is the liquid stacked stacked ETH on Cosmos. Can you walk us through this partnership with Axelar and Lido DAO to bring wrap stacked ETH to the Cosmos ecosystem?
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned previously, right, like the Cosmos is one of the most active ecosystems from the perspective of like developer activity. But unfortunately, it's not one of the best capitalized or most liquid DeFi markets yet. And that sort of like discrepancy has made it very difficult for some of the very, very successful, like very, very attractive and well-designed applications to actually reach that sort of like critical mass that allows them to like really grow, expand, and achieve mindshare. And so as a result of this, to ensure that the ecosystem continues to grow and develop as it should, we need to, as a community, right, as an ecosystem, focus on making sure that we're creating the right market, bringing enough liquidity, activity, users, so that there's an actual functional economy in there. And so, from the Cosmos perspective, this collaboration basically goes into this direction, right? It's the idea that we're going to work together with other ecosystems to basically achieve a win-win situation whereby, on the one hand, Cosmos gets increased mindshare, it gets increased liquidity as well, which helps sort of like bolster its local economy. And on the other hand, like stakeholder get to secure the Ethereum network, get to earn rewards from this, but also get to potentially earn additional rewards, like from incentives or from just like DeFi utilization from Cosmos. And for the Lido protocol itself, it means like a larger market that can now be expanded through essentially. And so this kind of like cross-domain collaboration that we think is is going to be a significant part of like the industry over the next few years. I think due to the sort of like different premises but similar objectives that Cosmos and Ethereum have historically had, we've seen this like massive technological divergence, and now we're seeing that both ecosystems are confronted to each other's problems, and so they're sort of like converging again towards on crushing infrastructure, on governance, on like scalability, on all of these issues. Basically, you start seeing pollination basically between these two ecosystems. And so, materializing this by also economic relationships was something that we thought was interesting.
And from the point of view of someone using like only like EVM chains, L2, something like that, I mean, what's the benefit of having like some liquid stake ETH on Cosmos? I mean, I can use only like Arbitrum, Optimism, Polygon, ZKVM, ZK-Sync, all these chains to, I mean, do some yield farming and stuff like that. Some old traditional DeFi, rather than bridging to Cosmos. What's the main perks of having it on Cosmos?
Well, there's two things. First, there's local demand to bootstrap these assets, basically. And so due to that fact, there will be local use cases. But because it's likely that there will be kind of like a mismatch between the sort of like demand for the asset and the supply of the asset in the ecosystem, it's likely that there will be attractive opportunities for earning rewards and such, right? So as a as a wstETH holder, you might be interested in joining that economy because you are interested in Cosmos as a whole, or simply because there are attractive opportunities and you're seeking to maximize, like your own return, basically. And both of these are valid. And at the end of the day, it's like one of the difference between, like, I guess the most significant like difference between what we all find between deploying your wstETH in Cosmos and deploying it in Arbitrum is that on Arbitrum, Optimism, and other L2s, you'll find applications that are built on generalized stratums, basically, right? And so the stacks that they run on are not optimized for their specific function, whereby in Cosmos, you can actually experience this, right? So for example, if you want to use dydx, the new upcoming version, that will be in Cosmos. And so bridging through that bridge that we recently launched and deploying your assets into dydx is going to be something that you will have an incentive to do, because like dydx is a unique product, and it's made even better by the fact that they were able to like increase performance and such by having their own infrastructure. And so if you want to do that, that will be in Cosmos.
Sure. Okay. And on a technical level, what challenge? I mean, more, maybe a plural. What challenges did you face in like working on this bridge between Cosmos and Ethereum for liquid ETH?
I think there's two main challenges. Like the first one is obviously like bridges are so like the like historically the most vulnerable part of protocols, and so ensuring that the right security procedures at least are in place to ensure that these assets are safe was like a very important part of a lot of the work that was done. The other one was really coordination. Like IBC as a bridge protocol works in such a way whereby the asset that you get on the other side of an IBC bridge is path dependent. E.g., if you bridge from chain A to chain B, the asset that you get on chain B is going to be the asset of the first blockchain, but encoded with the path that it took to reach your blockchain. And so if you transfer the same asset through another path, these two assets won't be fungible. And so because there was fairly strong demand for the asset in Cosmos, multiple projects wanted to bridge it. But without coordination, that would have resulted in outcomes whereby each chain would have had a different non-fungible version of wstETH, which would have made the user experience a lot more complicated and potentially also hindered the security of the asset itself. And so what we've worked towards designing is an initial system that achieves a few objectives. The first one is that like the initial bridge provider, XLR, is one of the two bridges that were accepted by the Uniswap due diligence report, essentially as a service provider for the Uniswap DAO, basically. And they've done very, very deep due diligence. This initiative also included fairly deep due diligence into the implementation, and, for example, included requirements like removing the previous admin multisig, which has now been deprecated in favor of like a fully governance-controlled upgrade mechanism. And so, like basically security was a very, very important part of the analysis. The second one was ensuring that the bridge itself can evolve over time to fit Lido's long-term bridging vision without having to basically create economical debt by basically having one denomination and then changing the bridge, and therefore having a new denomination and having to migrate all of the liquidity throughout the ecosystem, right? So what the current bridge solution has is this like bridge provider, XLR, that routes its asset into a wrapper contract. That wrapper contract is a very simple, very small attack surface contract that simply accepts the bridge denomination and converts it to actual wstETH ecosystem, so that all of the integrations can be made with this specific version. Now, what will happen in the future is that better systems will be implemented for this bridge. For example, the next step, which is likely to involve like both XLR, Wormhole, and potentially other bridges, is to basically develop a solution that aggregates the signatures of multiple bridges before minting or redeeming wstETH, right? So that if one bridge provider is exploited or fails, the bridge itself, the assets are not compromised anymore, because the bridges are only relaying a signature, not funds, basically.
Not like multi-chain.
Not like multi-chain.
So you mentioned several times dydx. What kind of impact do you foresee the addition of Lido ETH having on the liquidity within the Cosmos ecosystem?
I think it's likely to be fairly significant. And I think it also it is also like a strong signal between of both the directionality of the ecosystem, but also the alignment between the leading projects in the Ethereum ecosystem and in the Cosmos ecosystem, right? So those are sort of the two top of mind sort of benefits from this entire endeavor.
And so you worked on you worked on this bridge. I mean, yeah, this bridge between Ethereum and Cosmos. You worked on the Lido perspective. Could we see in the near future some more liquid stake ETH coming to Cosmos?
I mean, more assets coming to Cosmos?
More assets, but I mean more liquid staked ETH, like from Rocket Pool, Frax ETH. Is it something like we can see coming near?
Well, I think there's two considerations. The first one is that Lido is Lido staked ETH is by far the largest staked ETH asset.
One third of the total supply. Yeah.
Exactly. So it is, by far the most appealing asset, and in that it is the asset that has the most demand for in Cosmos, and that's one of the reasons that justify this whole endeavor. It's definitely it's entirely possible that we'll see other. In fact, Axeler already bridged Rocket Rocket Pool ETH, maybe even CD ETH and a few others, and so we might see pools between these two stable swaps being set up. That would be an interesting development. Now, I'm not aware of any teams or shepherding the move to bring these assets differently than just selecting a bridge provider and just bridging the asset. So yeah, it's entirely possible that we'll see them, but I'm not sure that it will be as much of a constructed initiative to bring them.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We are going to answer the second part of this podcast, which is the yay or nay question. So take a deep breath. Everything will be all right. So I will remember give back the game, the rules of the game. Thank you very much. So you have 11th question, one joker. It's yes or no. If you don't want to answer one question, you can use your joker. And yeah, at the end, you can have 10 answers, and there is one bonus answer. So when you're ready, let me know.
Let's go. Let's do it.
First question: do you see Cosmos overtake Ethereum in the future?
Yes and no.
No. This is not an answer. You can elaborate if you want.
What do you mean by overtake? So let's say no, in that I don't think that Cosmos will become larger than Ethereum by Ethereum's metric. I don't think that actually it really depends. Technically, depending on how you define Cosmos, Binance Chain is Cosmos. Actually, they use the Cosmos stack. So by some definition, Cosmos is already pretty freaking large. Now, is one single Cosmos chain going to be as large as Ethereum? No, I don't think so. Is Cosmos going to replace Ethereum? I don't think so either. I think both of these ecosystems will basically get closer and closer together, so that Ethereum becomes the largest, most decentralized, most secure hub in probably also the one that secures the most value in DeFi in the industry. It will remain in this leading position. But then I think it will basically, Ethereum itself will be part of the Cosmos ecosystem in that it will be able to interoperate with all of the other Cosmos chains, basically. So that's why the answer was tricky.
Do you think that crypto is more complex today than 10 years ago?
Is it more complex today than it was? Yes.
Are NFTs overrated JPEGs?
PSP ones, yes.
Don't you think there are too many different blockchains?
No.
Okay. Is growth more important than security?
No.
do you think people working in this industry really understand what they are doing or building?
No.
With nearly 33% of all liquid stake ETH circulating, do you think Lido makes Ethereum really decentralized?
I think with a Lido, Ethereum would likely be on the brink of death right now, death by centralization. So on the contrary, I think Lido largely contributed to making Ethereum still as decentralized as it is today.
Okay. Is proof of stake superior consensus mechanism compared to proof of work?
I don't think so. I don't think it is superior. I think it's different. It has different trade-offs. They're vulnerable to different types of attacks. They have different consequences on the economies. They both have centralizing forces that have been mitigated somewhat, but we're not completely there yet. Like staking pools and mining pools are fairly tricky to deal with. So no, I think they're complementary, actually. There's a project in Cosmos doing something that I think is fairly interesting, which is it's called Babylon. And what they do is they checkpoint proof of stake chains onto the Bitcoin network, so that you basically can avoid some of the attack vectors that proof of stake is vulnerable to, but that proof of work resists, right? So that in the event of a fork due to an attack, there would be an objective external element that the social consensus of a blockchain could basically use to resume the chain, continue the chain on the canonical, on the right fork, basically, to pick the right fork.
Okay. Do you consider DeFi to be riskier than traditional finance?
It certainly is more volatile. It is a lot less gated. The information can be sparse and not always ultra deep and accurate. So yeah, it's yes and no, basically. I think okay. I'll say yes for now, but also you wouldn't be able to access traditional finance. So
Do you think that despite the promise of decentralization, DeFi is still dominated by centralized entities?
A lot less so than in traditional finance, but I agree that there's probably a lot of work to be done still. Yeah, I don't think we're at the end game of decentralization yet.
Okay, so I will take that for a yeah. Looking at and this is the very last question. Looking at the recurring breaches in audited protocols, do you think that even blockchain's promise of transparency and immutability may be overestimated?
No.
Okay, congrats, you passed the test.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Will you be representing Neutron at the Cosmosverse event in Istanbul?
Yeah, I'll be there. There will be a number of folks from Hadron Labs there. So our company that did quite a lot of work on Neutron. There will be, I think, other DAO members. I think the Neutron Grants Program folks and GP will be there as well. So there'll be a fair amount of Neutron representation there, I guess.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Avril. Thank you for your time, and thank you for joining the podcast. Wish you the best, and hope to have you on an upcoming episode.
Yeah, for sure. Hope that was useful. Hope that was interesting to everybody. Thank you for having me on, Clément.